Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com.
From Tsunami Sushi in downtown Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Christiaan Mader, editor and publisher of The Current. It's business, Acadiana style.
Welcome to Out to Lunch. I'm Christiaan Mader. When you hear the word franchise, you probably think golden arches or maybe a pepperoni pizza with a hat on top. But franchises can be as creative and as personal and as local as any small business. And today, we're diving into two different ways of running a franchise. On one side, you've got a franchisee, a business owner who taps into an established brand or system. And on the other, a self-starter, someone who builds a business from scratch, something that might become a franchise. And my guests today represent both paths, and both are thriving here in Lafayette. Joe Thomas is the owner of a local Frios Gourmet Pops, a franchise specializing in, quote, happiness on a stick. Before Frios, Joe worked for a manufacturing company, and he got laid off in 2023. And while on the job hunt, he explored striking out on his own, maybe a restaurateur, maybe a landscaper, and he landed on the idea of running a franchise and discovered Frios with a Google search. He was sold on the idea, and he launched his own franchise in 2023. He operates a van, a pushcart, and a mini cooler to sell Frios Gourmet Pops of a variety of flavors at local events and festivals. We got plenty of those in Lafayette. And he sells about 1,700 pops a month. He was born and raised in New Orleans, and Joe came to Lafayette for school, earning degrees in electrical engineering and automotive technology. Outside of his work, he's an active member in the community, volunteering at his church, running with shelter dogs at Christiaan Animal Aid, and tutoring kids in math and science. Joe, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you so much for the invite. I do appreciate it.
Love to have you here. You know, for many small business owners, the dream might be to start a franchise. Others might find themselves building one just to chase runaway demand. Caroline Merriman fell into baking cookies during the pandemic. She delivered them to friends and soon found herself taking orders on Instagram. 6 months later, she opened a storefront for Caroline's Cookies. With people lining up around the block to buy them, Caroline decided to drop out of school and focus on her business full-time. Caroline's Cookies has become something of a local sensation, and today she operates 3 locations, 2 in Baton Rouge and her OG shop here in Lafayette. And despite the growth, Caroline still puts a personal touch on the business. Each week she picks a random Lafayette business and shows up with a batch of warm, gooey chocolate chip cookies. It's a great way to spread kindness and her brand. Caroline Merriman, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm really excited.
Joe, buying into a franchise, starting a franchise feels like it would be pretty straightforward. I can imagine like the allure of that approach to business is, hey, they've done a lot of the hard work. I put some investment in it. I get a business out of it, but it doesn't just stop there, right? I mean, so when you did this, did you expect this to be an easier proposition than it turned out to be?
Oh, yeah, very much easier because when COVID happened, I was just saving money.
Yeah.
The country was locked down and everything, so I was just going to work, get my money, just saving. I worked a couple like side jobs, side gigs as well, so I'm just saving money. And then I looked into buying something, and I'm like, some of this stuff kind of expensive, so
sure.
I need something a little bit more budget friendly.
Yeah.
So I seen Frios, and then it brought me back to my childhood days. Me, my cousins, my sisters, and stuff like that. We would always like have popsicles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. I started looking at the ingredients. I put in like a little inquiry so I could like talk to someone, and it was the CEO, which is something outstanding because usually it's like a salesperson,
Sure.
like some third-party company, but it was the actual CEO. I actually have his number and stuff like that,
Yep.
so which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, buying into it was easier than trying to start something else. All the permits
Yep.
and place to rent, space to rent and
Yeah.
whatnot to start. So yeah.
Yeah. Caroline, your business seems to have expanded pretty quickly. And I'm always sort of curious when somebody gets a level of scale pretty fast, right? Especially something like where you're like baking cookies. It's like a very personal, home-oriented task, right? But then one day you're not just baking 12 cookies, you're baking like 1,200. You got to have like an industrial level recipe and you got to ship them around. I mean, what's sort of like the biggest lesson you had to learn in scaling the business? Like going from 12 to 1,200 to 12,000 cookies is a real jump.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like for somebody like me where my brain is so scatterbrained, I had to learn how to write things down and actually document what I was doing. Because in the beginning when I was baking for fun, I never wrote a recipe down. And so we signed the lease and we get into the kitchen and we start practicing. And my best friend's like, okay, let's scale the recipe. And I'm like, okay, it's all in my head. So we, for the first time, started writing things down. I think the biggest thing that I did was put everything in my brain on paper and make it into something that my staff could follow easily.
Yeah.
So making a step-by-step process was harder than I thought it would be.
Did you find that, like industrializing the recipe, right? Like, I think sometimes people who maybe don't cook a lot, they don't understand that, like, yes, you can, like, multiply the amount of salt in something by 10, but the flavor on the other side of it doesn't end up just with 10 volumes of whatever that it tastes exactly. Like, you sometimes have to adjust the ratios, right?
Yeah.
Just to scale it up.
So I thought that I was just going to like multiply the recipe by 5 and then put it into these big mixers in this oven and it would be easy. That was not the case. We, for probably 4 months, baked cookies every single day, and I was like, nope, this doesn't taste like my kitchen, nope. And we just tried again and again and again until it finally tasted right. But that's what held us up from opening those first few months, is me not realizing that a commercial kitchen is a lot different than my one at home.
Oh, sure. Joe, I can imagine that there was a bit of logic, right? You said you remembered popsicles were a fixture of your childhood, so you could imagine other people enjoying it. But like, when you're thinking about the marketplace here, I have to imagine like the seasonality of it was attractive, right? The idea that like, it's hot here.
Mm-hmm.
It's hot here kind of all the time.
Yeah.
It's a product you can sell. I mean, did you have to really consider your opportunities to sell and kind of working out the business model in your head? You're choosing from franchises and saying, popsicles would work because it's like 100 degrees in Lafayette.
Yeah. Because the thing is, I didn't want to do no hard labor. I came from the warehouse, man, when it was hot, like 100 degrees that summer. I was like, man, I can't do this. This is hot. I'm sweating. I got to keep changing clothes every time, you know?
Yeah.
So I need something that is really simple. It's quick. It's a simple yes or no. I don't have to sit here for 5-6 hours trying to tell you, hey, you want me to build your fence? Here go your quote. This all the material. It's just something to get me started, because I was trying to quit the job, but they end up laying me off at that time. So I wanted something quick that I can transfer from one job to the other job. So trying to start something from the beginning was not the most ideal.
Did you have to learn how to make popsicles? I mean, I'm sort of curious, like, how the inventory side of this works. Are they shipping you, just popsicles as they are, and they got to stick them in a frozen truck? I mean, how are you making these things?
All right.
Yeah.
If you go on my Instagram, Frios Lafayette, I have it pinned. Yeah. What we do is each of us do a training. So they take us through the warehouse. They show us how everything's done. They talk to us, I guess the trade secrets and whatnot. So it was pretty fun learning the different flavors as well. Because, for instance, they have a blueberry cheesecake. I'm like, I've never seen that, before. Or a blackberry ginger lemonade, or my personal favorite, the white peach lemonade. So looking at the flavors, looking at the ingredients, I'm like, it's something I could put myself behind, because personally, I take quality seriously. So, yeah.
I mean, Caroline, I'm curious. I mean, like, I get the impression that you maybe didn't set out in life to bake cookies for a living, that maybe it was sort of something that you figured out that you were pretty good at. I mean, when you started doing this, around the COVID era, was it, I'm looking for a business I can start and cookies make sense, or was it, I want to make cookies and bring cookies to the world? I mean, which either one is sort of equally worthwhile business endeavor, but I'm just sort of curious what that motivation was.
It was definitely just a hobby. I thought that I was going to be a dentist.
Okay.
So
That's kind
it
of
wasn't in
ironic,
the plan.
isn't it? Yeah.
It wasn't in the plan. I ended up shadowing a
Yeah.
dentist office and realizing that wasn't something I was interested in.
You were
But
like, I'd rather rot the teeth than fix them.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
When I started the Caroline's Cookies Instagram, it was just for fun at the time. I remember I was so scared to even start the Instagram because I was like, it wasn't even to sell the cookies. It was just to show the cookies.
Okay.
So it was definitely something that happened by accident, I
Yeah.
typically say, which it was the best accident that could have happened.
Yeah.
But I also think that since it happened that way, it was kind of good because I was like, I didn't know what was coming my way. It
Yeah.
just kind of landed in my lap
Yeah.
and just took one step after the other.
When you kind of made the industrial, I keep using that term as though like you have robots making these things, but I guess I am curious, like, you had to tweak, you had to figure out the batch, to get to that home flavor. I mean, did you have to turn to any other sort of expertise to figure out how to bake cookies at scale? Like, was there a resource you had to tap into for that?
So I searched the depths of the internet, and there wasn't specific things that I could find. I ended up reaching out to Patrick Poupart, and he offered me some great insight.
Okay.
I was able to go and
Of
test
Poupart's
out.
fame,
Yes.
the bakery into it. Yeah.
I ended up bringing my cookie dough to his oven and testing out his oven there. I was trying to figure out some things that were going on in my oven. So he was super helpful, and that meant so much to me because he was just being so selfless about the situation. There was no competition because we were two different bakeries. He just loved what he was doing and was so
Right.
eager to share what he knew.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, did you have other mentors come in to sort of help you? I mean, I get the sense, you're not really a food truck, but there is a bit of a growing,
Yeah.
food truck community out there, folks that show up and do vending at, the big festivals and gatherings that we have here in Acadiana. And I've always been struck that there's a fair amount of, like, collaboration. It's like a crowd that doesn't feel very competitive. I mean, has
Yeah.
that been your experience?
Yes, all the frozen dessert vendors, I basically have their numbers or probably spoke to them before.
yeah.
And if I can't do an event, I'll be like, hey, I got this, I'll reach out to some people and whatnot. But with the mentor part, the good thing about the franchise is I have everyone's information from across the country. So they've been through some things, like people, first year to veterans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I could call them and ask them, like, hey, how do you run neighborhood routes? Or with your van, how do you serve and stuff like that? What kind of events are good in your area that I can look out for? Or what type of collaborations you do with either other frozen dessert vendors or just companies in general?
Is it a pretty restrictive process? I mean, does the central franchise govern a lot of what you're allowed to do? Do you have a lot of flexibility to sort of say, hey, people in Lafayette would generally prefer this ginger lemonade this way? I mean, what kind of flexibility do you have?
They do have some flexibility, such as we just came out with the new frosted vanilla. Like, everyone across the franchise was like, hey, people keep asking for vanilla, and people was asking me for vanilla as well. I'm like, so I put in the, the survey, because they give us surveys every so often, like, how are we doing as a franchise?
Yeah.
What do you want to see more and stuff like that? Like, hey, a lot of people are asking for vanilla. Can we get that? And so they go behind the scenes and they come up with one, and then they make one, and then some people purchase it, some people wait to see what other people's reactions are. So once they get that good traction, it's like, yeah, all right, this is a good product. And for instance, another thing they do is when we go to our corporate yearly annual meeting and stuff like that, they'll put in our group chat, like, hey, what flavors y'all want to see, and the top 3 flavors or whatever that people vote on, they'll be like, all right, we're gonna make them, and then we go bring them to the conference and stuff like that. Y'all try them, and which one y'all like, we're gonna start producing. So it's a lot of flexibility. Also with the territory type of thing, if it's outside my territory, they're not really strict on it. You just gotta let them know, like, hey, I have this event that's outside my territory, and they like, okay, as long as no one else is there, because you don't want to mess up other people's money. So they'll be like, all right, you good to go. So it's not really much restriction, because they want to see you successful.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Christian Mader. I'm talking with Joe Thomas, owner of Frios Gourmet Pops Lafayette, and Caroline Merriman, founder of Caroline's Cookies. Caroline, you probably got the opposite kind of view on this. I mean, you're having 2 versions of your business in another city. I mean, have you had to sort of think through what level of flexibility that they have versus not? I mean, I'm always sort of curious about how any sort of multi location business sort of balances the need to sort of know the customer on the ground, but also to maintain the uniformity of the brand that helps sort of customers grow to understand who you are and what you do.
I think I was listening to a podcast, I think it was about Shake Shack, and they were saying how they try to do like 75% consistency across all of their locations and then 25% something unique to each location.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I say, the approach that I would do. So hopefully when you visit all 3 locations, majority of the things are consistent and like on brand, and that's Caroline's Cookies. And then there's a little bit something special about each location, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's the essence of a Caroline's cookie then? I think that begs an important question. There are lots of different ways to bake a cookie. You do a special kind. So
Yes.
what's the thing that you're like, man, if you deviate from this core?
So Caroline's Cookies, our slogan that I just came up with one day in 2020, it's thick and gooey. So
Okay.
I love cookie dough. I grew up eating it out of the bowl, way too much of it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of cookie that I sought out to make because I knew there was a gap in the marketplace. We have a lot of great cookies here. I personally love Great American Crumble, all those, but I was looking for like a really thick and gooey cookie that kind of was like eating cookie dough. So that's
Okay.
what I sought out to do.
So do you find that your stores in Baton Rouge or even, I guess, in Lafayette, I mean, they're getting customer feedback and you're saying, all right, well, in Baton Rouge, they need a cookie that's, I don't know, like purple and gold or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm sort of curious, like, how that feedback loop works. Like, what sort of changes would they even want to make? I mean, cookies are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I definitely didn't realize, like, going from one location to 2 that Lafayette and Baton Rouge are so different in good ways. For example, I think Mardi Gras is a little bit bigger here in Lafayette. St. Patrick's Day is bigger there in Baton Rouge. I've always tried to balance what's good for the business and my staff, but also feedback from our customers. So about every month, I try to post like a anonymous feedback form, just a Google form on our social media, and see what we're doing good at and what we're doing bad at, and that really helps me gauge what the customers have been thinking.
Yeah. Joe, is it the sort of thing that because you have a territory, right, that you would be able to sort of have the first right of refusal to do a second truck or something, like, or to do Frios set up to where, like, if you wanted to have a brick and mortar, you could? I mean, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of what expansion could look like for you, given that you kind of, when you buy a franchise, you buy a territory. You have the exclusive right to operate in this zone, right?
So they're kind of against the brick and mortar because
Okay.
it's just a pop.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that if you put other things in the store, it's going to take away from their brand. So if you
Yeah.
have like drinks or some other type of product, but they're really trying to push the mobility part.
Sure.
So expansion would be mostly getting a second van.
Yeah.
Or also getting more freezers, maybe, such as the pushcart and the mini cooler freezer.
Yeah.
I have.
Are they giving you those? Like,
No.
when you sign up, like, do they get, hey, here's...
No,
your-
that's the difference about a couple franchises. Sometimes if it's a small initial investment,
Yeah.
you gotta get everything else. But sometimes, like the bigger places, you put down more money and they give you the area, I guess, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
like the Chick-fil-A, it'd be different. Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or some other place.
Yeah.
So for this one, I had to put in a initial investment, which was right around $20,000.
Okay.
So that gave me the territory
Yep.
and stuff like that. So I had to go out and get everything else.
So you needed to buy a van, buy
Yeah.
a cooler and all that. That's not like a thing that... Did they have sort of requirements on what you put on the van and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we get all our marketing materials
Yeah.
from HQ, which
Yeah.
is great. So they do like this thing where they have a Google folder
Yeah.
and you can like put post on there or post on like your social media. Also, you can add your own.
Yeah.
So I'm not a marketing media type of guy. So that's fantastic that they have something that you can also post.
Where do you buy a popsicle van? I mean, was that a thing where, like, they were just sort of like, oh, well, and here's an introduction. This is Steve. He runs the popsicle van store.
Yeah.
I mean, or did you, like, kind of, were you on your own there, too?
When they had, at the time that I'd done it, they revamped and everything
Yeah.
since then. But I'll go out, I'll get a van, get a cargo van.
Yeah.
I actually had Lafayette Custom do my, like, interior work,
Yeah.
the window, also put in, like, the battery and the inverter,
Yeah.
also the freezer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I got Sign Design Pros to do the wrap.
Yeah.
So I send what van I have to HQ,
Yeah.
and then they come out with the template and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, Caroline, I mean, I'm imagining you're maybe at this point not doing so much of the baking yourself. I mean, did you kind of go through that, call it traditional founder's dilemma, where you were sort of like, oh no, I have to decide what my job is. I used to do all of the jobs, and now I have to pick one of them. I mean, talk to us a little bit about how your day-to-day work life has changed.
Learning how to delegate was one of the trickiest things because you just want to touch everything and have your hands on every part of the business. But once I did learn how to delegate, everything became a whole lot easier. But it was hard giving up like your baby basically and giving that. Like the first year of business, I didn't let anyone else bake. I was the only one who baked the cookies every single morning. So if I was out of work, the business was closed, or if I was sick, the business was closed too. So obviously that wouldn't work long term. But I had to really step back and evaluate where I was best and what was going to fulfill me most, because I didn't want to burn out too quickly or
Sure.
at all.
Yeah.
So since then, 3 years now, I feel like I kind of am getting in my groove, but also every day looks so different. Like Monday, I was training our Baton Rouge manager and I was sitting on my laptop all day, and then Tuesday, I decorated cookies the whole day. So I think that's part of the reason that I love what I do so much is it's a big balance between being an entrepreneur and owning the business, but I still have the freedom and ability to do what I love, which is baking.
Do you feel like your career growth is the sort of thing where you would want to just keep growing your core brand, or would you look at starting other, food enterprises?
That's a good question. I think right now, this year, my goal is just to get as consistent as possible. And I'm not interested in opening any more locations at Caroline's Cookies. I just want to make these 3 locations the best that we can. I think I'm pretty satisfied where I am right now, is what I keep telling people. I feel like I have 3 children, and that's all I need. I don't think I could have any more.
Yeah. I mean, Joe, the other way that you could, of course, expand, a lot of folks will buy into other franchises, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they sort of take what they've earned in one franchise, and they say, okay, well, I've got my Frios franchise. I'd like to, just to use one you threw out, I'd like to own a Chick-fil-A. I mean, is that the trajectory you'd like to see yourself on?
Yes, because I wanted to start off basically something small and easy.
Yeah.
Let me see how taxes work. Let me see how permits work, stuff like that. Let me build networks with people. I know some construction folk now. Some I know people, right, that can actually, take it all together and make it one thing. But I wanted to own more franchises.
Yeah.
I actually have a note in my phone from like years ago saying which franchises I wanted to own. But I was like, I ain't got $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm not a millionaire yet. So
yet is the operative word.
So yes, that is the plan. I want to at least expand Frios, get some staff on here, because it's basically a really good part-time job.
Sure.
I'm like, I'll go to the event and I make this much, and then I looked at the job I work, and it's the same amount, the check and whatnot. So I'm like, oh, yeah, this is nice. So, like with Caroline, I struggle to try to have somebody delegated as well.
Yeah.
I kind of want my hands on everything to see it, but I know I'm going to have to let go one day and have somebody else do it.
I mean, does the franchise have like a playbook built in, for you? I would imagine one of the things that they would be able to offer is, hey, you hit a certain dollar volume, and you might think about bringing on an employee, and here's the employee handbook is already written for you. I mean, is that kind of baked in?
Yes, they do have that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just general, because in different areas it's a different culture and stuff like that. So also you got to find the right people that actually want to take on the responsibility. But they do have like handbooks and guides, and I also have the other franchisees on how they found their employees and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, Caroline, you're managing a lot of part-time employees, right? And I'm sure at some point you had to sit down and say, you're talking about it, right? Like you had to delegate these things, train people, so you needed documentation. I mean, did you have to like buy a cookie company? I was going to say cookie cutter, but that would be too obvious. Like off the shelf, like here's how to run documentation for employees. I mean, did you have to develop that, write all that stuff yourself?
In the beginning, when I hired my first 4 employees, nothing was written down. We were just taking it day by day and hoping for the best.
Okay.
And then I think it was just something gradual that happened over time. But honestly, a lot of like the systems that we have in place and things that we've implemented for our team to have a good day were all thanks to like our staff's feedback. Like a lot of this my staff created themselves because they were in the mix and they knew the right questions to ask, because it was hard for me to put things down and have documentation because it was just all my brain. Like it's hard for me to explain. So my staff has helped me tremendously build systems in place for the future teams that are to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're having to think about more than just how the cookies get produced. I mean, there's a lot more to running a brick-and-mortar operation than that, and it sounds like your staff was giving you feedback on even just how to run a workplace.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How did that develop for you over time? I mean, you're at the point now where if I get hired by Caroline's Cookie, like I would have a pretty organized set of procedures for everything?
I will say I guess that's a struggle that most people have is training, just because there's so many different parts of Caroline's Cookies, and when you get hired on, you do a little bit of everything. Like, you're not just a baker, you're also frosting cookies, making dough, baking cookies, working the front, restocking the ingredient shelves. So it's a little bit of mix of everything, and I did that because I didn't want my staff to get burnt out. Like, I wanted them to, if they work 3 days a week, they get to do 3 different things during that work week.
Yeah.
So I still haven't nailed like a good training program. That's something that I'm still working on. We do have a handbook now that kind of helps them get a feel for our environment, our expectations, and just general rules that we give to them before they come in. Mm-hmm. But when they come in, we're still kind of just like, my business partner says, like, baptism by fire. Like, they just kind of get thrown in and figure it out because it's hard to figure out a training program. So we're still working on that.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, have you sort of figured out, at least at this point, like, space where you would want to hire? I mean, if you were to bring somebody in, what kind of role they would need to play? Is it more about just having 2 trucks and then 2 people running them? I mean, what would be that next sort of incremental step for you?
All right, so the next step would be they work on the truck with me.
Yeah.
See how I interact with customers, also understanding all the flavors and all the ingredients in it. A lot of our pops don't have dye, and a lot of people are looking for like vegan options and stuff like that. So vegan options, dairy-free options and dye-free options, stuff like that. So you need to know that like off the top of your head.
Yeah.
I do have a couple like folders and stuff like that that tells you as well. But that, and also knowing what you're selling to customer, because some people come up and be like, oh, I don't want to pay that for a popsicle. Well, then look, we're not really popsicles. Let me tell you what it is, how it's made. It's all hand poured, made by real people and stuff like that. It uses quality ingredients and stuff like that. So this is a premium pop, you know? So stuff like that, and then next, getting them to drive a van on their own. Because I have my personal truck that I have my trailer, and I bring the pushcart so I could go somewhere and sell, and then the person could take the van and go out and sell.
Yeah.
That, and then once they get rolling, I kind of want my own little spot, because I have to have a commissary and have my pops all across the Lafayette area and stuff like that. I want everything like centralized. But that's really where.
Yeah.
Because because it's not really, I don't know, really there is much more expanding than to have like a couple trucks. Like, I'm not trying to have 50 trucks rolling around Lafayette.
However you're going to choose to grow your business or start a business, right, it's nice to see you guys having success in it. Caroline and Joe, thank you for coming on Out to Lunch at Acadiana to share your growing pains with us. My guests on Out to Lunch at Acadiana today have been Joe Thomas, owner of Frios Gourmet Pops, and Caroline Merriman, founder of Caroline's Cookies. We edited this conversation to fit into our time slot here on KRBS. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Joe and Caroline by listening to the Out to Lunch Acadiana podcast. You can find and subscribe on your podcast app and on our website, itsacadiana.com. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on itsacadiana.com and on our Out to Lunch Acadiana social media. These photos were taken by Aster Morgan, and you can find more of Aster's photos at astermorgan.com. Out to Lunch Acadiana is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRBS 88.7 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Chad Terrio. Our researcher is Leah Urdialis, and today's show was engineered by Dylan Babineau. I'm Christian Mader. I'm editor of The Current, Lafayette's nonprofit newsroom. To get the scoop on Lafayette, head over to thecurrentla.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. See you here next time for more business and conversation on Out to Lunch Acadiana. See you then.
Out to Lunch Acadiana was recorded live over lunch at Tsunami Sushi on Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Tsunami is open Tuesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, serving sushi, sashimi, salads, and authentic Japanese grilled dishes. Tsunami welcomes casual dining or reservations. More information at servingsushi.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. And by JP Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, JP Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.